Welcome into the Fade. I am Clay Travis, joined now by my man Todd Fuhrman. Hey, Fuhrman, did FanDuel give you a $30 million a year deal?
I'm still waiting for my phone call and my lifetime endorsement deal, but it must be in the mail. It probably got lost in translation. I figure, Clay, they're just waiting to settle their books for 2021, and inevitably by January 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, I'll have a duffel bag full of cash, much like SEC teams and players do, waiting for me on my doorstep to secure
Now
the
are
bag.
you going to have to shift your mockery of super rich dudes from me to Pat McAfee? Is this going to be difficult for you to manage?
You know what? I'm going to have to try and divide my loyalties here. I might have to pick up the phone, see if Pat has a deeper recruiting budget, if he wants to make a commitment to the gambling space for next football season and beyond. I like to look at myself as a free agent, constantly negotiating 1-year deals, trying to see where I'm truly wanted. And I guess I have to flip it back on you. Do you believe you sold Outkick a bit prematurely, knowing the kind of money that could be out there?
I'm going to look. I don't even know how to spend the money that I have now. I mean, it's good. Good. First of all, I'm always in favor of anybody who does what we do, making as much money as possible because
100%.
rising tide really does lift all boats. So, congrats to Pat McAfee. I mean, in all honesty, like I got the house we're building in Florida. We're going to be building a house, and I don't even know what else I want to buy with the money that I have now. So. I'm still a relatively young man. We'll see how much more money I can make. I'm glad that McAfee's given a new target here.
I mean, it's got to be nice because the bus only broke down 37 times so far this season. So next year, you'll get a private jet that'll be nicely wrapped for you guys. Meanwhile, I do this show twice a week from my 1-bedroom apartment right off the Las Vegas Strip where I'm slaving away along with my lovely fiance, just trying to make a pittance wage so we can make ends meet at the end of each month.
I just hope you're going to be able to stop escorting soon. It's been a tough business, I know, for you to be sleeping with men and women, whoever needs it, for as long as you have. I just hope one day
equal opportunity around here. The problem is it's a young man's game out there. And so as I inch closer to 40 in this upcoming March, I'm not sure I can command the same high premium I was able to do when I got started in that line of work at like 26, 27.
All right, let's dive into. We just got NFL now because college football. We just got Army Navy. I'll get an Army Navy prediction from you. The unders hit like 764 consecutive times in Army Navy, by the way, which feels a little bit un-American to bet on the under in Army Navy. But let's start with Steelers-Vikings tonight. All sorts of injury issues. Steelers got a big win at home against the Ravens. Vikings absolutely fell apart, losing to the Detroit Lions the last time we saw these two teams in action. What happens tonight? Where's the value?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who bet the Minnesota Vikings over their regular season win total at 8, having that ticket all year long and needing to watch that godforsaken football team has been cruel and unusual punishment. So now I understand what you go through each and every football season rooting for the Vols and Titans and what you endure during the college basketball seasons as well. Thankfully, my attachment's only 17 weeks, not 73 years like you. But when you look at Minnesota in this spot, we know offensively they're going to be down Adam Thielen, so it puts a lot more pressure on Justin Jefferson on the outside. But he's lived up to all the expectations that they've kind of force-fed him in the offense. Clearly, he's as dynamic as there is to come by at the position. Dalvin Cook upgraded earlier today. We'll see what kind of workload he can manage. And when you look at this Vikings team, I mean, the reality of it is they're an offensive-minded group. I mean, your boy Kirk Cousins putting together numbers that should have him in the mix for MVP if they had a better win-loss record. It's been the defense that's let him down. But I do think this group should be a little bit better this week. They'll be healthier at the linebacker position with Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr both up. You got some of your key components on that defensive line back in the mix last week. And Patrick Peterson comes off the COVID reserve list. So Minnesota on a short week playing with their season hanging in the balance against a Pittsburgh Steelers team. Short week travel. Big Ben has been awful with 3 days of rest. I know the Steelers have been outstanding as an underdog. I'm just not optimistic they can run it back. So for me, shop around. I think at last check, FanDuel Sportsbook had the Vikings -3. That would be my pick, despite the fact that the numbers made it a shade shorter. I just think you get a complete effort from the Vikings. But buckle up because this game will come down to the final snap. Like 9 out of 12 Viking games have already done this so far this season.
Yeah, there's no doubt. All right, let's go into the rest of the NFL games. One that I'm really intrigued by, Ravens-Browns. The Browns have stuck just below a 3-point favorite all week. This feels like, you tell me if you disagree, Fuhrman, a make or break game that the Browns absolutely positively have to win. And meanwhile, on the Ravens front here, I am really intrigued by what's going on with Lamar Jackson. They can't seem to get set on the all-out zero coverage. Teams are blitzing him like crazy. Offensive line falling apart, a lot of turnovers. This feels simultaneously like a pretty monstrous game for the Ravens in the AFC North. What do you see here?
No doubt about it. I think when you look at both of these teams and their upcoming schedule past this week, it's do or die time. And Baltimore, I know they went for 2 in the waning seconds against the Steelers. How different their season outlook would have been if they were able to get that win at Heinz Field last week instead of kind of clawing for their playoff lives. Now, I know they're overwhelming favorites at FanDuel to make the postseason, but there is some skepticism. You talk about that offensive line. It's really let Lamar Jackson down. He's been sacked 37 times, and he's a quarterback that holds onto the ball way too long in the pocket behind an offensive line that just hasn't been able to protect him. You look at their turnover margin so far this season, -8. The company they're keeping in that particular group are the likes of the Bears, the Jets, and the Jaguars. It would be the worst turnover margin for a playoff team since 2012. And now defensively, they're even more banged up than they were previously. Marlon Humphrey lost for the season, added to the injured reserve list where Deshaun Elliott and Marcus Peters were much earlier. They're good against the run. They struggle against the pass. And the Browns come in rested. They've had 2 weeks to prepare after that disappointing 16-10 game. And suddenly we're talking about 2 quarterbacks in Baker Mayfield looking to try and secure a contract extension, whether it's the Browns or somewhere else. We'll see what the Ravens want to pony up for Lamar. But I think this is an all-hands-on-deck game for Kevin Stefanski and company. I really believe you're going to get Cleveland at its best. And if they were smart, they throw the ball a little bit more aggressively downfield, setting up some running lanes instead of the way they performed 2 weeks ago on Sunday Night Football. I like the Browns. I'm not sure I'd lay the 2.5. I still think it's relatively cheap laying the money line in that $1.35, $1.40 range.
I'm going to open it up to Fuhrman for the games he likes best. But in the meantime, as we come down the playoff stretch run of the season, 4 or 5 games left, depending on your team, I'm going to try to focus a lot on the playoff ramifications. So, next one up, we talked about do or die for the Browns at 6-6. The Raiders are also 6-6. The Chiefs suddenly have got things right. They're 8-4. Their offense may not still be clicking on all cylinders like we were anticipating. But what happens, Raiders? Chiefs a big favorite, nearly a double-digit line here in this one, which will be a big deal, I think, in the grand scheme of things. Right off the top here in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's a big number, and with good reason. I mean, when you look at this Raiders team, other than that Thanksgiving game against Dallas, this offense has really lacked punch. I think the numbers at last check, they've scored 16 points or less in 4 out of 5 games, kind of bottoming out. And you wondered how this offense was going to look, being down a playmaker in Henry Ruggs, being down its play caller in John Gruden, and of course, last week having to go to battle without Darren Waller. So very limited weaponry. We'll keep tabs on Waller to see if he's upgraded. Revenge for a game the Raiders were embarrassed in their own building on Sunday Night Football a few weeks ago. Kansas City's second most prolific offensive performance in that contest. But to your point, this Chiefs team has really lacked that big play potential. It's been much more methodical, kind of dinking and dunking their way down the field as teams have adjusted. We'll see if the Raiders have the kind of personnel to make the adjustments needed with a too high safety shell to try and limit Kansas City from going up top, something they didn't do effectively in the first meeting because they didn't really try and roll that out. Meanwhile, the Raiders, I'm not sure what kind of offensive charge they can mount. The problem being with this total, I think it's been bet down way too much already. From 51 and a half at the peak, we're now looking at 47 and a half, so it doesn't offer some wiggle room. As the number inches up to 10, I could see making a slight case for the Raiders, but not a game that I'm running to bet by any stretch of the imagination. I think the Raiders can be better. I just don't have a lot of confidence if this game starts to get away for them to even keep the back door open.
NFC East, speaking of the back door open, WFT, Washington seemed like they were dead to rights. They now have crept back up into the mix in this division. They're around a 4.5-point underdog here. If they are able to win at home against the Cowboys, however, 7-6, 8-5, half game when you look at the tie break would be separating these two teams theoretically. And also it's worth contemplating down the stretch, and I think you've tweeted about this, for the WFT, they've got the Cowboys, Eagles, Cowboys again, Eagles, Giants, all NFC East games. That doesn't feel too ominous. If they could win this game, Todd Fuhrman, they are right back in the mix in winning in terms of trying to repeat as NFC East champs.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Washington has to love the way the schedule has broken in their favor so much that they can control their own destiny. And you begin to wonder if it's history repeating itself, given how slow they started last year before they picked things up late in the campaign. After going to Alex Smith, the schedule softened up and we saw the defense really start to assert its will. But this year, I feel it's a little bit different. I think Washington over the last couple of weeks, while people want to laud their defensive performances, we've seen the pressure rate drop. And it's been more the offense playing keep away than anything else. I mean, the time of possession numbers are staggering that Washington has put forth since coming out of the bye. And other than the Bucs that first Sunday that they held in check at home, you look at the recent run of opponents, and it's not exactly a murderer's row of opposing quarterbacks or weapons. I think this could be a little bit of a shock to the system. I mean, Dallas is going to have its triplets healthy in the receiving group, and Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, and Amari Cooper. The offensive line will be much more intact than what we've seen for long stretches this season. And knowing that they're a little bit nicked up at the running back spot with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, I think that plays into the hands of Kellen Moore and the way he should want to call the game this week, attacking Washington through the air, putting this team on skates, and forcing the Washington football team to play from behind where they can't necessarily sit on the ball and go 2 yards in a cloud of dust. So while it's not something that I normally will like to do, advocating for a division team on the road laying points, I think this is a lay it or don't play it type scenario with the Cowboys where you can sell Washington football team stock at the bottom of the market. And for me, I think the Cowboys get to 28 points in this spot, weather permitting. So I actually like their team total over a bit. That should be available on FanDuel Sportsbook at last check, 26.5. I think minus $1.15, the going rate.
Giants, I'm not even going to go to Giants Chargers. Sorry. I meant to hit 49ers Bengals. If you have a strong lean in any of these games that are not both.
I definitely don't in Giants Chargers. Although as an SEC guy, you should be carrying the flag for Georgia football. They need something to get excited about. And Jake Fromm will potentially make his long-awaited NFL starting debut.
I will say, Jake Fromm, I know it's hard to outkick your coverage if you are a starting quarterback in the SEC. He might have done it, so at least he's doing well in that department. 49ers Bengals, by the way. You got two teams that are on the periphery kind of fighting, 6-6 49ers who've gotten a little bit hotter. Bengals, I mean, I started to believe in them, and then they got whipped this past weekend. What happens here? San Francisco, a small favorite on the road in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I actually like the road team in this spot. Now, I know we're going to be watching the injury designation and status for Elijah Mitchell, dealing with concussion protocol, but it came out earlier this week that he had an MRI on his knee. Never a great situation to deal with. But the 49ers were down a couple of key cogs last weekend, and it showed in the second half where they allowed Seattle to completely lock that offense down. But Deebo Samuel trending up. We'll keep tabs on that to see if he's a full go on the Friday practice report with the groin injury. Fred Warner, no limitations in practice, which will help this defense substantially. And when you look at this 49ers team, specifically with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm, they've been much more dynamic at the betting window from an against the spread standpoint when they go out on the road than when they play at home. So I think things point in that positive direction, especially in the wake of that performance against Seattle, where they came up, 6-7 yards short with that last-minute potential touchdown game-winning drive. Meanwhile, on the other side for Cincinnati, I mean, this is a team dealing with a rash of injuries, most notably to Joe Burrow, dislocated pinky, not going to throw the ball a ton in practice. And I think it's a bigger deal, not just because it's his pinky, but because Joe Burrow is still working to build a rapport with younger receivers. I mean, we see Big Ben and Aaron Rodgers taking a week off of practice. You don't worry about it. They've grown familiar and comfortable running their offensive scheme. They know their weapons. But if Burrow's not out there working with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and company, you begin to have some questions about the potential timing against the 49ers defense that's going to put some pressure on them. Meanwhile, on the defensive side, no Logan Wilson, the talented linebacker out of Wyoming. He's the defensive play caller, going to be out for an extended period of time. Chidobe Awuzie left the game last week against the Chargers. And there's a reason the 49ers have moved from modest 1-point underdogs into that slight road favorite role. This is one of the biggest coaching mismatches as well, Clay, that you're going to see of the NFL week. I think Coach Shanahan gets his bunch ready to roll, and Kyle gets the better of Zach Taylor. I like the 49ers here to win rather comfortably.
Two more big games. Bills-Bucs. The Bills, 7-5. They were my Super Bowl contender before the season. I thought they needed to win that game against the Patriots. I know there were weather conditions, which probably made your entire season, Fuhrman. And
that was weather nirvana.
Yeah.
Watching the field goals go back and forth, realizing that they couldn't kick for more than 12 yards out. Although I did bet under 44 longest field goal, I got a little nervous. knowing that it was only working in one direction and it wasn't quite swirling like some of my guys on the ground had told me earlier in the day.
So this was a weather nirvana for you. And then Bears, Packers. The Packers are obviously chasing the Cardinals, which is the Monday night game. We may get to that in a minute. But first, Bills, Bucs. Is this a must-win game for the Bills? They aren't in that comfortable a position for even the playoffs right now, to say nothing of trying to keep pace with the Patriots right now.
Well, I think from a division standpoint, they've really put themselves behind the eight ball. Now, I know they do play New England in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I'm not sure of the exact schedule there. So they'll get another crack at the Patriots, albeit on the road instead of playing in Western New York. But at the same time, you mentioned it, lose this game to Tampa. Suddenly you lose potentially to the Patriots, and the schedule, maybe, well, at that point, I guess the best case scenario would be 10-7. And that might not even be enough to get them into the AFC playoff picture if things break the right way. So if the Bills want to make it easier on themselves, there's no doubt you want a big win on Sunday and bounce back in a short week. But Tampa's not the kind of team where you just show up, put the pads on, and expect to go out there and dominate. So at 3.5, there is a little bit of value on Buffalo, but I'm not sure I'm running a tango with the side. I want to see how this Buffalo defense looks without Tre'Davious White, arguably their best defensive player, and against the team that can throw a number of different receiving threats at you. I really think it's going to be a big problem, because suddenly Dane Jackson probably becomes your top cover corner, and that's not a situation you want to be in against the healthy Rob Gronkowski, getting Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who I think caught 13 balls last week against the Atlanta Falcons, or some ridiculous number. So when I look at this game, I think both of these offenses are going to have some success. So I'd be inclined to look over the total. I don't think there is a ton of wiggle room, though, as it's been bet up from 51.5 to 53. But maybe you go derivative market and you're making a case for a first half or something along those lines. I think you're going to see plenty of points and fireworks at Raymond James Stadium, but not enough to get me on Buffalo, at least the way things stand right now.
Early read, we'll do the show again, the fade, every Monday and Thursday is when we do this show. Rams Cardinals on Monday night. The Cardinals right now a 2.5-point favorite. They effectively can end the NFC West race if they were able to win this game.
Yeah, and this is the game where we saw FanDuel actually open the Cardinals as a 3-point favorite. Immediately, they took money on the Rams. And I think as you begin to dig into this matchup, you have a little bit of revenge working in favor of the Los Angeles Rams, who were embarrassed in their own building when these two teams played earlier this season. But again, real questions, and I think Cliff Kingsbury has to go out there and prove it to all of us that he can win games when they matter most. Sean McVay's at least been to a Super Bowl and won when the pressure's on. Now suddenly the Cardinals can't take the underdog mentality. They know there's a target squarely on their back. And to your point, a win here would most likely secure the division for them. But I lean towards the Rams. I'm a little bit unhappy that I didn't take the field goal when I was out there. 1.5, 2, probably not enough to buy. But for those folks who are looking to try and get involved on Sunday and tie it into Monday Night Football, maybe a teaser works out in your favor, taking a 6-point tease up through the key numbers of 7, getting them up to 8, 8.5. I think the Rams will have a chance to win it, but there's just not enough value in the number for me as things stand now.
Any other of the games that we didn't hit on specifically in the NFL that you love or that are your favorite bets as we sit here on Thursday?
I think those are the main matchups that a lot of our audience is going to be intrigued by, to say the least. You have a bunch of dumpster fires out there. I know we talked a little bit about Jake Fromm getting the start for the Giants. You do wonder about the Chargers letting down. The one thing we've grown accustomed to since they made the move from San Diego to Los Angeles, they've been an automatic go against in their own building. I obviously would prefer Daniel Jones was out there starting, but it could be a little bit of a letdown. So if this number gets out of control, I do think the Giants make some sense as an underdog. Not a game I've bet yet, but do have my eyes on it, maybe to even go under the total as well. And you touched on it a bit with Sunday Night Football. I'm still trying to figure out how the TV executives allow this game to be the one that we're exposed to on Sunday night. I'm sure there's limitations in what games NBC can flex into that spot, even if it was going to be, Bills, Bucs, that I'm sure folks fight over, and the 49ers, Bengals, what have you. But this number's rich. Green Bay has absolutely owned the Bears. Aaron Rodgers' numbers are downright gaudy when he plays at Lambeau Field against this team. And you'd be dumb to get in front of the freight train. But this price is probably 2.5 points too high. I think Green Bay, though, can build a lead, kind of sit on it and keep that back door open for Chicago. So not a game I'll bet. And to be quite honest, maybe not even one that I'll watch from start to finish, knowing that my beloved Golden Knights have a home game against the Minnesota Wild, it'll go head-to-head with it.
What about Army-Navy? The under, I think it's down to what, like 34? Am I wrong about that?
I mean,
it's crazy.
This totals, it's out of control. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to clamor for it and go, hey, well, the series has gone under, 15 straight games or some ridiculous number. But 3 or 4 years ago, I was going under 51 in this game, and the games were getting close. So we talk about efficiency all the time, and the market's going to consistently evolve. Here we are now with a price that gives you absolutely no wiggle room at 34.5, 35. Could it go under? Sure. But would it shock me at all if it was 20-17 or somewhere close to that? Not in the least. So I don't think you have much opportunity to go under. Maybe there's an early score and you get an adjusted total to take advantage of some of the live lines at FanDuel. I'm going to lean towards Army as well, or towards Navy, I should say, because with such a low total, being able to get 7.5 attractive. But again, this game is one worth watching, more for everything that surrounds it. And it's great that college football world allows it to be a standalone game, knowing what those kids will do after they finish their time on campus playing football, that they're going to make greater contributions to American society than anybody else out there. But for at least 3 hours on this Saturday after conference champions are crowned, these boys get to be front and center. And it's a game, honestly, that I know you've been to that I would love to go to at some point. I hear it's unlike any other college football experience.
It's awesome. I've been fortunate. I've been to Philadelphia. I've been to Baltimore, I believe, both of those locations to be able to watch this game. And it really is a majestic experience for sports fans, but also for people who just deeply appreciate, as you said, what the Army and the Navy cadets and soldiers mean in the future for this country. It's a fabulous experience. This year, I believe it's in MetLife Stadium just outside of New York City. And I'm sure it's going to be a really electric experience with fans allowed back after last year. While it's cool to be able to have done it from West Point, it was not a traditional setup. This year, I know it'll be an electric environment. Todd Fuhrman, nice hoodie, by the way. We will talk to you on Monday.
Hold on 1 second. If you're going to take shots at my apparel with this new fancy setup or whatever the hell you got going on, and I look in my return monitor, you're basically 6 inches away. I feel like you're going to be licking the glass. The other thing, I got to work on my lighting. I know you have a glorious tan after being able to spend Thanksgiving at one of your 37 beach houses somewhere in the U.S. Virgin Islands or Turks and Caicos or wherever it may be. And I look completely ashen because, like a vampire, I don't get to leave the house during the fall. So it's a little bit disappointing. And I'm not a handsome man to begin with, and this lighting just makes me look that much worse.
They put a brand new camera system in the house here. I'm told that I now have the exact same camera system that Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity have. So I could do an entire Fox News show directly from my house if I needed to. Instead, they got me talking to you in a hoodie. You can see how well
I mean, those guys are, Clay, there's a reason for that. Those guys are making what, 30, 40, 50 million a year, and here you are grinding away.
Money. They're making Pat
That's
McAfee
what I was going to
money.
say. So something to aspire to. I'll never be a political commentator, so I got to try and work on the FanDuel folks. If they're watching the show, tuning in, if you want to send me an envelope of unmarked bills, I'm more than happy to take full advantage. It'll be our little secret just between the two of us and the 12 to 14 people that are tuning in to watch the thing.
FanDuel.com/Clay is where you can go get your bets in right now. I believe, what's the new state? Maryland's about to go live. Am I right, Fuhrman?
Yep, and some positive news coming out of Ohio. So inevitably, FanDuel will be there soon, just in time for all those Buckeye fans, I'm sure, to plunk down money on their scarlet and gray. Especially in the wake of Michigan being in the college football playoffs.
What's the time
fingers
frame
crossed it comes to Ohio
What's
soon.
the time frame for Ohio? I haven't read that. Will they be up and
They're
running?
they're saying early 2022, but we know when it comes to some of this, there's a lot of red tape to try and cut through. So it won't be while the Browns and Bengals are still playing. Maybe if they're lucky, it'll be in time for March Madness, which could be an optimistic timeline, but definitely by fall of 2022. And I know that's what matters most, to try and bet a little college and pro football as well.
There you go, my man. He's Todd Fuhrman. I'm Clay Travis. This has been The Fade. We'll see you on Monday.